Hello, Steve. These are your carburetors. Actually, these are exchange carburetors. As I mentioned, your carburetor bodies had been previously abused by someone that didn't know what they're doing and pretty much had ruined them. So, found you some other bodies. I want to go over a few things with you. These carburetors have new throttle shafts, new throttle plates or butterflies. Throttle shafts are riding in bushings, and all your machine surfaces have, all your flat surfaces, mounting surfaces have been machined. I've got all new gaskets. You can tell those because the gaskets are red. The aftermarkets are black. I mean, we don't want those. You can see it right here, the red gasket. Yeah, let's see if you can see that or not. It's very sunny and bright out here, so it's hard for me to see. Anyway, the red gasket there. Helicoils installed as need be. Let's see, all the steel parts have been cadmium plated as per original. Now let's go into mounting the carburetors. When you're mounting the carburetors, when you're hooking up the fuel line, I want you to use two wrenches, one to stabilize the fitting in the flow bolt cover, and then the other one to do the turning up here, because if you don't stabilize this one down here when you're wrenching on the swivel fitting, you'll rip this out of the housing. Mounting the carburetors, you mount them up loosely. Everything's totally assembled. Mount them up loosely. Then you take your air log and put your air log in place, wiggle the carburetors around until the air log installs, snug it down with a couple of nuts, and then do your final tightening on the mounting bolts. That way, when you have all this tight, the air log will slip on and off. And don't tighten up one nut and bolt and then go to the other ones. Do them in a little bit at each at a time, so that you don't put any stresses on the carburetor flanges. Be sure to use new mounting hardware, or rather new mounting rubber gaskets between the body of the carburetor and the intake manifold, and make sure that you're using factory rubbers. And make sure your intake manifold is tight against the cylinder head. A lot of times you can actually grab the intake manifold and wiggle it and see if it's tight. And if it's not, then that's a whole nother video, and we can discuss that. Make sure your linkage is in good condition. Sloppy linkage will make things very difficult for you to tune the carburetors or adjust them so they work in sync. Now, the carburetors are tuned already, but I'll show you about adjusting them. And if for some reason they ever come out of, like someone comes in and undoes all your adjusting screws, your basic settings are 1.5 turns in on the idle screw, and then 1.5 turns out on the idle mixture screw, which is this guy right here. And I'll show you about those in a little bit. You can only adjust the carburetors when they're fully warmed up to operating temperature. We want to adjust the airflow going into the first barrel of each carburetor, and then make sure each carburetor is drawing the same amount of air for each first barrel. I will show you that. I have to make sure the second barrels are not drawing any air, either because of worn butterflies, and obviously not in this situation, but mechanically they can be held open by mistake through linkage or sticking, so make sure that's not taking place. Let's see, G55 idle jets. These are the bane of everybody's existence on these cars. The G55 is right here, and it's solely responsible for the idle. So if your car doesn't idle, but you can rev it up and it'll run nicely above 2,000 RPM, but you let off on the gas and the idle drops, and then it stalls and dies. This little guy right here, and all you gotta do is unscrew it. No biggie. unscrew it, and you'll notice that there is a teeny tiny hole. You can't even see it. It's just the diameter of a pin. That little teeny tiny hole has gotten plugged up on the end. Blow it out. Excuse me. Or if you don't have method of blowing it out, say you're on the road, well, you just swap the idle mixture, the idle jet from this side or this side, and that should take care of your problems. Alright, fuel is very important in terms of cleanliness. Make sure that you have got a new fuel filter, and maybe even and I always recommend an extra fuel filter between the original fuel filter and the fuel pump. Make sure you got clean gas and clean gas tank and fuel lines. If you see any reddish brown sediment in your fuel filter or your fuel or in the fuel float bowls, it's not sand, it's rust. Now then, we're going to test your carburetors here. We got a stone cold engine. And we're going to go through the starting procedure, or you would always go to your fuel pump, prime your fuel pump. You prime your carburetors by activating the fuel pump priming lever. You'll then, I would say, give it a couple of gooses. Activate your choke. Switch on. Now notice when I'm activating the choke, at the same time I'm actually operating the throttle linkage. And that's what you're going to be doing from the dash of the car, activating your choke lever, pulling it in and out as you need to adjust the idle and get the car to run. One of the few adjustments you can make on these carburetors are these screws right here, which adjust the angle of the levers where the choke cable goes. And you can adjust those to match up with your choke cable coming down through the air log. Now we're going to take our time and get the engine up to speed. Here's our temperature gauge. You got to get that up to operating temperature, and then we'll be ready to tune. Obviously, I've already tuned these things, so they're running very nicely, and I will show you how the process is. It's very easy. So if you're driving, as you started cold, you got the choke pulled out all the way, and as you start driving off, if the car stumbles a little bit, push the choke in and help it to run a little bit smoother. As the car goes along further, the more it warms up, and the more you push the choke in. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, you should have the choke off, I believe. We got you a real nice idle, about 700. But to accelerate the process, to warm the engine up, trying to get some temperature here. one thing I forgot to mention, idle mixture screws. I'll be adjusting these later on, but this idle mixture screw in the second barrel is blanked off. It's a dummy. It's glued in place. Don't touch it. It does not need to be moved. It's fine. And just leave it alone. Don't touch it. All right, we're about to. Thermostat's about to open. It's starting to. Should open and the temperature drop. There we are, we're dropping back down in temperature. Okay, thermostat's open, we're good to go. Alright, what you want to do is make sure the throttle linkage is disconnected between the two carburetors. That way we won't have interference from the throttle linkage, and we will adjust it last. And just make sure that this one doesn't open by itself accident or so that the engine over revs. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our synchrometer and we're going to start checking airflow. So right now we're at about 5.5, almost 6. We'll check over here. 5. So we're going to adjust this one up a smidge. Now a little bit more. You hear the RPM increase. Now we're at 5.5. 5.5. It's nice. Now we might make sure that our second barrels are not drawing any air. This one you can see. Alright, see there it's about 2. So over here is about 2.5. And that changed just a smidge as I pushed on the counterweight, which will weigh her in as time goes by. They're a little tight. So we're down to about 2.25 there. Which is wonderful. Now we're going to adjust the idle mixture screws. And what we're looking for is a change in RPM as we find the sweet spot. So we'll screw the idle mixture screw in a little bit and then out a little bit, and we'll find where the best running of the engine is. You see it already start to drop off? See how sensitive they are? Back it out. Starting to drop off again. Find the midpoint. Same thing over here. Dropping off RPM. Back it out. Smooths out. RPM starts to degrade, go back in, find our sweet spot where it runs the smoothest, and then last thing is our linkage. And what you want to make sure is that when you snap this linkage ball in place, nothing changes. Now the linkage up to this point, those have center to centers that I'll send you information on, and they're fixed in stone for the most part. This has a turnbuckle, and it's designed to where a person can unloosen the jam nuts, and then you tighten the turnbuckle in and out until, and I've already done that obviously, when you tighten it, turn it in and out until you just snap on the linkage, nothing changes, and then of course you hold here and you secure your jam nuts. And remember, one of these is a reverse thread compared to the other one. And that is it. We've got a real nice steady idle, and we've got carburetors are idle beautifully. We come back to our idle. it. That's it. Now we're a little hot start. Just nothing better, just like brand new money. Steve, you got some really, really, really nice carburetors in place of the world's worst that I've ever seen anybody send me. So, congratulations. Thank you for your patience.